Hi, I'm Cici,
And I'm Sharif,
and
and
this
this
is
is
Life
Life
with
with
Us.
Us. Welcome back to our second episode, guys, of Life with Us. We want to thank everybody that tuned in last time in our first episode, where you guys got to meet us, get to know us a little bit better. And today we're going to dive into our next topic.
Yes, because today we will be talking about being young and married. On our social media pages, we asked you guys for some questions. What are questions you have about life as a young married couple? And so we're going to answer your questions today. But before we do that, we want to just go over some misconceptions people have about being young and married.
Right.
Yeah, so let's get into it.
The first misconception that we're going to talk about is that life ends when you're married.
Yeah, I think that's a funny misconception because people have this idea that when you're married, your life ends, you lose all your friends, you have zero freedoms. And for us, in our experience, that's just not true. I still get to have lots of fun with my best friend, even. So in my experience, it's just even better. Um, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I guess the thing a lot of people are afraid of is that okay, you're still young and you still have a lot to experience. But like you said, you can do all the things you want to do, and later meet someone that you want to share your life with, and then you have to tell the person the stories of all the things that you experienced, or it can also be a nice thing that you experienced all those things with that person already. So being married young in that sense is also very nice that you have a person that you can share those experiences with instead of just having to tell them later on. And indeed, it's definitely not true that life ends when you're married, especially if you're young, or even if you're young. Everything that you would do, you have a person that you can share them with. And if you have friends that you share, mutual friends, and so on, um, yeah, all these people will still be part of your lives, and you can still have beautiful adventures. You can still have nice experiences and stuff that you can tell. Maybe your children later the things that you guys did together when you were young.
Yeah, I've come to realize that when people say this, what they're actually saying is that they're afraid of letting go of their selfishness, because when you're single, you don't have to keep in mind what another person thinks or what another person might want to do. It's just you and your thoughts and your will. And then when you're married, you kind of have to submit some of that will also to the will of the other person. So you're actually in a team, you're doing it together. So when people say that, oh, they're afraid of their life ending when they're married, it's just they're afraid to let go of their selfishness. They don't want to be in a true partnership with another person. And you kind of see some people even take that into their marriage, and that's kind of like a recipe for disaster.
That's true. That's very true.
So I think it's time for our second misconception, which is you will stop pursuing one another.
Right. First of all, I think it'll be naive to say that certain things don't change. Things do change when you're married, especially when you're married for a long time. You know, in your first couple of years, your honeymoon years, you still do act as if you're dating. But with time, things do tend to settle. That doesn't mean that you don't have to put effort into wooing your significant other and pursuing him or her, and go on dates, you know, have fun. But you get, especially as you grow, you become an adult with responsibilities. You get into a certain routine, and you have to be more deliberate about it. You know, you have to. You hear people that are married for a long time say that they have their date nights planned. It's in their agenda. So you have to become more deliberate about it, and yeah, more creative in ways to keep it fun, keep it adventurous, and um, let the other person know that you still that you're still madly in love with them. And it will be in some cases different than when you're dating. That's true.
Yeah, when we got married, actually, one of our witnesses gave us like a tip. He said this is the best tip he could give us, and that is to keep dating one another. And that
Mm-hmm.
is so true because nothing of quality, nothing of importance just happens by chance. You have to keep watering it. You have to keep tending the fire. Otherwise, the fire just goes out. So, I think to say that you'll stop pursuing one another is just assuming that once you're married, there's not going to be any effort put in anymore. And we all know that if you want it to last, you have to put effort in it. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of like my thoughts on that. I don't think you. Some people may stop pursuing one another, but
Mm-hmm.
if you want it to last, I don't think that's kind of where you should start.
I think it's also true that yeah, certain people they enjoy the chase more than the relationship itself. When you're dating, you have to keep pursuing each other and staying up all night and messaging and talking and so on. But once your relationship progress, you do move past that phase, and you need to find excitement in different things, in the smaller things in your relationship. Because if that's the only thing that fuels your relationship, the chasing, then indeed once you're married or once you're in a committed relationship, and that becomes a less important aspect of your relationship, you will feel yeah, maybe bored or whatever. You don't feel like it anymore. You hear a lot of people say that they don't feel like it anymore. They don't feel the love and so on. So you have to grow past that phase, or else you will find yourself in that situation, and you don't want to be part of the relationship anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a very important thing that you're saying because you're mentioning because um, our generation our generation lives for that high.
Mm-hmm.
Like they love that high of the initial pursuit, and then when that's gone, you'll hear them say, "Oh, but I'm not. I know I fell out of love," and
Yeah.
I think that's such a tricky thing because we've made this feeling of pursuit, that initial high, we've made that into our conception of what love is. And in reality, I've come to learn that that's not really love. That's kind of like an infatuation, but it's not love. Love is a commitment. Love
Mm-hmm.
is a choice that you make to keep investing in that person, to keep working on that relationship. And you see a lot of relationships fall apart because they will say after a while, "Oh, I'm no longer in love because things are not as smooth as they used to be, or is not as easy as it used to be." And yeah, they fall into the trap of believing that that initial high, that pursuit, is love. And so I
Mm-hmm.
understand that people will say, "Oh, but when you get married, you'll stop pursuing one another," because they've kind of linked love and marriage to that high, and they don't realize that in when you've been married long enough, that pursuit just looks different.
Right.
Um, yeah, I think that was a good one.
Yeah.
Okay, our next misconception is that you will outgrow one another.
Right. Um, Now the thing is that you do go through changes in life, especially when you're young. Um, like we went through a lot. Like in the 4 years that we've been married, you stopped being a student. You found a job. I went through hardship with schools and starting things over again, and there'll be more of those things. I learned more about myself. You learned more about yourself. Recently you rediscovered uh, passions you have with sewing and so on. So you do go through changes, and I think it's important to note that um, you realize that you will change. You also have to realize that your partner will change as well, and with changes come mistakes. Because yeah, the only way you won't make mistakes if you keep doing the same thing over and over
Yeah.
again. But that's just not how things work. So there will be mistakes, and you have to have that compassion with one another, knowing that there will be some mistakes along the line, but that we keep yeah, supporting each other, and having a more importantly having a common goal that we both know where we're working towards, so that yeah, when we see things shifting, when we see things changing, we know that we're working towards something. um yeah.
Yeah, I think what helps me or what helps us go through changes is the fact that we're going through it together. You know, we're not
Mm-hmm.
going through it alone. Like a huge thing that has been a part of our life in the past few years is grief, and grief is something that truly changes you. Or me having to deal with anxiety, and in the beginning of our relationship, I dealt with depression. So it's something that you go through together. And I think that's kind of what makes marriage so beautiful, is that you don't have to struggle with it on your own. But it takes enormous grace and compassion from a partner to be able to give you the space to grow, give you the room to develop yourself. And also playing a supporting role. And that's why I love that verse that says, be devoted to one another in love. You devote yourself to one another. When Sharif needs the support, he needs to grow through something, I know that I can be there. I can devote my time. I can devote my love in helping him, in helping push him forward. And the same thing, he would do the same thing for me. If I need support with a new hobby or some character development, he's going to be there to push me. And yes, of course, sometimes it's going to be difficult, and you might disagree on certain things. But I mean, that's part of any relationship, that's part of marriage, that's part of life. You will experience the same thing in marriage, you will experience the same thing in friendship, and you're just going to have to push through it and come to an understanding with one another.
Yeah, I also want to highlight the importance of reflection, because you're together the whole time and you experience each other every day. You don't notice how much you've changed, and sometimes when you look back, you look at a picture of 5 years, you know, those reminders on your phone on Facebook, and you go like, whoa, we've changed a lot. And that's physically, but also your character changes, your behavior changes. And it's important to every now and then sit down and talk about it, like, oh, what have we been through in yeah, the past period, and see how we change. That
Mm-hmm.
it's not a surprise after 3-4 years and you hear some couples say like, yeah, he changed a lot, I don't know how it happened. But that's because we let the changes surprise us after
Yeah.
a lot of things happen, and we don't even recognize the person. It's because we don't take time to, yeah, appreciate or look back and reflect on things that have an impact on us, like you said, losing loved ones, period of grief, or changing a job,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is. Take time to yeah, assess how that actually changes your life, so that you're not surprised after a couple of years of how different someone has become. So be open with each other in those things. Don't go through things alone.
Yeah.
Share how you feel, what you feel, and yeah, so that it's a journey that you do together.
Yeah, a major key in this is, I don't want to sound cliche, but it's just communication. Like, communicate with one another throughout your journey, um, because you're not going at it alone. You're not on the journey alone. You're with someone. And so if you keep all of your feelings, all of your emotions, all of your thoughts to yourself, and then you are a completely different person, it will come to as a surprise to your partner.
Mm-hmm.
And so something that we do every year, or we try to do, yeah, we do every year, is that we at the end of the year, we look at what we've gone through, what if we've done, what we've learned, how we've grown. And we also routinely, we try to do it weekly, is just ask each other some simple questions. What has been on your thought, on your mind recently? What's a dream that has been on the forefront of your mind this week? What is some things that we have to resolve that we haven't resolved, or unspoken issues that we haven't spoken about? Those are very important things if you don't want to be surprised by the changes in life.
Exactly, the big questions, like, have your dreams and goals, have they changed or have they shifted?
Yeah,
Those kind of things.
good stuff.
Okay, we've arrived at our last misconception, and that is that young people's relationship don't last. In other words, how do you make it last?
How we make it last. I mean, we've already talked about it a little bit. Communication is key, and we've mentioned some other things in the other misconceptions, like being able to set aside your pride, your selfishness, being able to devote yourself to another person. You know, in Christianity, we say the word submit unto one another. That's something that in our culture nowadays people don't want to talk about, but there's an importance in being able to submit unto one another. Like I submit under Sharif, he submits under me, which means that we make sure that the other person is happy. We make sure that we're taking care of one another. It's not that one person puts in the effort and the other doesn't put in the effort. We talk through things. Like especially when it comes to like finances, our goals, our dreams, you know, we make sure that things don't go unspoken, because when things go unspoken it creates room for misinterpretation, or it creates room for misunderstanding, and then you're gonna see that resentment will start to build up, bitterness will start to build up, and once those things take root it's very difficult to outroot them, because tiny little things build up into something that's much bigger, and before you know it you can't even remember why you are so resentful towards one another. It's just something that's been slowly building, and that's kind of the things that you want to avoid, and how you avoid them is by talking. You avoid them by communicating, by not letting it fester, or by not giving subtle hints. Like I see a lot online, sometimes people want to make like jokes about you know, I just give him the silent treatment and I just act like, you know, and then he just has to figure it out. Like those kind of things, they don't contribute to building a healthy relationship, and then it will definitely not last if that's how you're going to go about it. The best way is to just talk through it, like as soon as you can, you know, and also don't speak from a place of anger. If you need some space and some time, take some time, but definitely um, talk through it. Make sure that you talk about it. Like, hey, the thing that you did, I didn't appreciate it, or the way you spoke to me, I didn't appreciate it, because sometimes the other person doesn't even realize it. And if you don't talk about it, you're going to make scenarios in your head. At least that's the kind of person I am. I'm going to make scenarios in my head. Oh, he did this because of that. But no, you're making room for resentment and bitterness, and that's extremely unhealthy.
Yeah, that's true. Um, I think you have to realize that your partner is your partner becomes your priority. Like um, everything you do, everything in your life affects your partner as well. And yeah, once you put a ring on it, that's commitment. So um, you can't just yeah, try to flee everything. Like we said, actual love is not just the pursuit; it's now putting the work. So once you're in a committed relationship, you actually have to put in the work. Um, and yeah, we're talking about things that can sustain a relationship, help it work. But an equally important question is what causes people to break apart, or relationships to break. And oftentimes it's like when people can't put their pride aside, they always want to be right, or things can hurt sometimes, and you can't um, put away things of your character or of your nature that isn't helpful to the relationship. So if you like staying out at night 3-4 times a week, that's not really helpful to your relationship. It's not healthy for your relationship. And if you're not willing to change in those ways, change the things that don't help your relationship as well, that at some point can cause your relationship to yeah, to fail. And an important thing as well is, we talked about it, maybe finances. I think that's the leading cause
Yeah.
of divorces, when partners cannot agree with each other when it comes to finances, especially when times are tough, and yeah, they just can't agree on what to do with their finances. And yeah, it's important to also keep an eye on the things that can cause your relationship to break. Like if you have boundaries, healthy boundaries, if your
Mm-hmm.
partner has a boundary, make sure that you communicate those things with each other, that you're aware, and don't try to push the boundaries, and know when certain things go too far, know when you have to take certain things back. um, so yeah, that's an important thing to look at as well.
Yeah. Yeah, especially yeah, we will definitely want to talk about finances like in a devoted episode to just talking about finances, but especially that the divorce rate is very high. It's almost 50%, and also amongst Christian
Hmm.
marriages, and it's important that's kind of why we're not even talking about the spiritual aspect of it, because I feel like especially in Christian marriages we focus on that a lot. But when we look at the things that break apart marriages, it's very practical things. Something as practical as talking about your finances. I mean, if I have been shopping too much this month, Sharif should be able to say, "Hey, babe, like we need to look at our how we're spending our money." That should be something that is okay for him to say. I shouldn't feel attacked, or um, I shouldn't feel any type of way because he is addressing something that he sees is an issue. So I think that a lot of us have some room to grow in that, and it's a very big factor in what's breaking apart marriages. And yeah, so how to make it work, talk about those things.
Yeah, to summarize it, indeed, you need to be willing to put aside some of your own interests, some of your own wishes to serve your partner. And if you both take that attitude,
Yeah.
in the end, you both benefit. But you have to be able to put your partner, yeah, the partner is your priority.
Yeah, but emphasis on you both
Mhm.
have to be able to do
Otherwise,
that.
it's not sustainable.
Otherwise, it's not gonna work.
No.
Okay, I think that was it for our misconceptions. As we said in our very first episode, we're gonna leave room to answer some of your questions. And on our social media pages, you send in your questions, and we will just quickly go through them and answer some of them. And if you want to ask us questions for our next episode, be sure to follow us on our social media pages, or just leave your comment and we will be able to reply them.
Yes. Now, let's go to our first question. How did you manage to combine your finances as young adults?
Yeah, that's something that we did slowly but surely, and we started doing that when we were already dating. Because I believe that if you want to make it into a sustainable practice in your marriage, it's something that you have to start addressing slowly but surely when you're also dating. So we would make it already a priority to talk about our spending when we're going and doing things together. Okay, how is this budget that we set? How are we going to pay for certain things? So that is something that we already started to practice. And it's kind of like, this is how much we spent on this day, this is how much money we're going to put into this. So it's something that we made a habit before we got married, is to talk about finances, and to it's not my money and like your money is your money. No, we can both pay and contribute, and it's our money. That's the principal thing. We don't have a joint bank account, but I know that whatever I'm buying is like not solely my money, it's also his, and whatever he needs is not just his, it's also mine.
Yeah. And maybe a good experience for us as well is that we started dating as students and having student budgets. So we know we know how to live on tight budgets. We know how to approach each other when we know things might be tight a certain
Yeah.
month, or we know that a certain month we do have enough to do fun stuff or go on vacation and so on. So yeah, the when times are rough, that's when you see if you really have a grasp on managing your finances together.
Yeah. Next question. What are the most important things in your relationship when it comes to being young and pursuing God?
Yeah, no, we try to to guide our relationship or marriage based on biblical principles. And if you want to base your life on biblical principles, you have to know what the principles are. Um,
Yes.
so yeah, we do take time to educate ourselves and see how to live a godly life and have a godly relationship. And that's very important, and not only on your own but as a unit as well, that you take time to see what God's plan is for your relationship, and see if how we're setting up things in our life is according to the will of God in our life. So that's very important for us. Um, yeah.
And also another thing that's very important to us is to do that in a community. It's easy to become an island on your own when you're married. When you're in your little marriage bubble, but it's important to continue to grow on in your spiritual walk as well, but with in communion with others. And the way we do that is by volunteering in the community center. A way we do that is by working with other leaders in our church community as part of the leadership team. And we help the youth. We're the youth leaders in our church, so it's important for you to also be able to serve, not only serve one another, but serve outside of your own bubble. That is very important as well.
Yeah, and there's a lot of value in the experience of people that went before you,
Mm-hmm.
people that are in healthy relationships for a long time. They've been through things that maybe you will go through. So try to have people around you, couples around you that can teach you important lessons in life, so that you don't have to make the same mistakes. Sometimes it's good to to stumble, so that you can learn, but you can also learn by from the experience from others. So we try to have couples around us, or talk to people, or even on YouTube, like you guys are doing now,
Yeah.
watching videos, content that can actually build up your relationship.
Yeah, and also your relationship with God, and that's kind of where that community comes into play, because if someone sees that we're slacking, they'll be able to say, "Hey, you guys, I think you need to work on this." Or if you're married with one another and you're working on your relationship with God, on your spiritual journey, you can say, "Hey, Sharif, I haven't seen you read your Bible much," or talk about, like, we make it a habit in our household to talk about we theological things. We like to have theological discussions in our house, and you definitely don't have to do it uh, in our way. It took a long time for us to kind of find something that works for us, because I think in Christian relationships, we often have this picture that, oh, this is how it has to be done. You wake up in the morning with your partner and you pray at 5 a.m. and then you go into your devotional together. And of course, there are people where that works, but we realized that just doesn't work for us. And so that's also a journey in finding a way to pursue God, to pray, to fast, that works for us as a couple, for our relationship. And we've definitely been able to reap the fruits of that, of being able to pursue God together.
Definitely.
Yeah. Next question.
Okay, I'll read it. um how do you guys deal with that's capital D question, when will you have kids?
Yeah, I mean, lately we haven't gotten that. No, that's a lie. I was gonna say lately we don't get that question often. We get it very often mostly from our parents. If it's from our close family, it's something that I don't mind. I just kind of laugh it off or make a joke, or I tell them, "Are you gonna pay for the child?" or something like that. I see that it's it can be a touchy subject for a lot of women that struggle with infertility, or have had miscarriages. So it is definitely something that I think people should be more careful about. Like, it's something that I don't appreciate from strangers. You know, if someone doesn't know me at all and they're going to be like, oh, when are you having kids? I think that's kind of rude and insensitive to where a person might be on their journey. But if it's from close family, it's something I don't mind, because I think they're just excited to kind of see what will come out of your marriage, out of your relationship. They want to celebrate with you. They want to see your love grow. They want to see your love basically in the form of a little human being. And so I can see that it comes from a place of just excitement and joy and love. And so in that case, I don't really mind it. I'll just joke it off and yeah, laugh it off.
Yeah, but on a serious note, you do need to be ready. Maybe not 100%, 90%. Having kids, it's a life altering thing. So we yeah, use wisdom, but also know that, of course, once you do have kids, that God will provide. And so sometimes we worry too much about wanting to have everything in control before you start a family, but you do need to use wisdom and to not carelessly bring a child into this earth.
Yeah, and I think that there should be a solid foundation in your relationship to be able to handle such a huge change in your
Yeah.
relationship. I mean, it disrupts your routine, it disrupts your sleeping schedule. You have to be able to handle that kind of pressure. Also, you kind of have to already talk a little bit about, okay, how do we feel like we're gonna raise a child? Like, what are things that are important for us? How were you? How were you raised? How was I raised? You know, those are kind of conversation that you would have to have ideally before you have kids. Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, what's the secret to not getting annoyed with one another?
uh, yeah, certain things will annoy you. You just have to deal with it. Just deal with it. But the more important thing is to it's your reaction to when
Yeah.
something happens, that your partner does something that you don't like, and how you react is more important. That you don't just react harshly and become mean. We tend, this, it works for us to um yeah, let things simmer for a while, and then we talk about things. And we also have a rule that it's something I learned from my parents: do not let the sun set on your anger, on your um whatever negative emotion you have. Make sure to deal with things, and don't let things simmer for too long, because those things become resentment. um but yeah, you need to be able to make that known, that a certain thing annoys you, that you don't like something. We talked about it during the part of experiencing change when you're young. um yeah, when you're trying out new things, people will make mistakes. So you need that grace, that mercy, to allow your partner to make mistakes. But yeah, come together and talk about those things.
Yeah, and also being able to let go of some things, because sometimes you want to get mad at things that are not even, important. So being able to pick and choose your battles is super important. Like, I like to joke with Sharif that he's slow. Like, he moves so slowly and he takes so long to get dressed and get things ready. But imagine if I would get annoyed at him every time I feel like he's taking too long. Your marriage, you're just gonna have such a miserable time together. So being able to pick and choose your battles and just laugh certain things off, and just joke about certain things, it's really not that deep. It's not that serious. When it comes to important things, yeah, sure, talk about it. Make sure it doesn't simmer too long. But some things are just really not important enough to make it into a big deal. So let some of it go.
Yeah, and uh, sometimes when little things annoy you a lot, that's oftentimes a sign, a symptom of deeper things that you need to handle. Because small things like leaving a sock in the living room, okay, that's annoying 1-2 times. But if a sock on the living room causes you to blow up and become super angry, maybe there's something else underneath that is a bigger issue that needs to be handled. So keep an eye out for those things.
Yeah, excellent.
All right. Yeah, what's the difference between being girlfriend and boyfriend and now being husband and wife?
The difference. I mean, the difference, you will not feel it initially. I will say probably like as soon as you get married, there's a huge difference. No, it's definitely not it. But as you continue in your marriage, as you grow, there will be a difference. We already spoke about that high going away. You know that I'm so in love, like that excitement is just there but less. And in our last episode we already said it is more consistent, it's stable. And that's, I think, partly has to do with the sense of commitment that you have. A marriage is just a lifelong commitment, and that's just not a security that you have within a like boyfriend girlfriend dating relationship. There is always a chance that that person may leave. And you may say, like, looking at the divorce rate, that same thing goes for marriage. But you go into marriage assuming that you're never going to get divorced. That's the whole point. It's a commitment that you make to that you're going to invest in the person, and you commit to not the person that you're marrying now, but you also commit to the person that they will become in 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah. And maybe an obvious thing is as well, once you're married and you have your home and so on, that that you experience each other every minute of the day, so you know what a person does when they brush their tooth, and how their fart smells like, and those kinds of things. So you get to know every little detail of a person, and yeah, then you have to deal with the new things that you learn about a person as well. So but that's also a nice thing to navigate. It's also an adventure in itself.
Yeah. Also, not unimportant at all is, of course, like from a Christian standpoint, marriage is an important covenant. It's supposed to reflect how Christ looks at His bride, the church. And marriage is supposed to be the vehicle, or a family is supposed to be the vehicle in which God can attend to the world, can bring His character into the world. And so, yeah, that's just different from a dating perspective. That is just not a covenant. Okay, so now we're down to our very last question. What advice would you give to young people who want to get married?
Right. So, okay, first of all, what we've been doing is not trying to convince everybody and just go out and get married. You do have to be ready. I don't know what you consider to be ready. You don't have to be 100% ready, I would say, but make sure you are, that you're mature enough to handle the things that come with being in a committed relationship, and that you are a complete and whole person, not meaning perfect, but yeah, no, there's this saying that marriage is not two halves coming together to form one, but it's two complete person coming together and forming one unit. So making sure that you are in your by yourself, in a good mental place, spiritual place, even physically, so that your partner doesn't become your source of worth, your source of happiness, but that you
Yeah.
have, you know what your value is, and you have already an idea, a vision for your life. And once you're at that level of maturity, that you can share that then with a person. So that would be, my advice, or advice.
Yeah.
Um, be ready. Don't go into marriage for the wrong reasons, because we know what the divorce figures are. That's how things do end badly. Work on your character, work on yourself, and yeah, then hopefully you can have a good relationship.
Yeah, perfectly said. I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, just work on that wholeness within yourself, because otherwise you're just gonna end up putting all of the responsibility for your happiness and your worth on your partner, and that's kind of a very, yeah, it's a very, yeah, bad thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, guys, that was the very last question. We want to thank you guys for tuning in once again. If you have any questions for us, make sure that you follow us on our social media platforms and you can ask your questions there. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, you can leave your questions in the comments. And what else, babe? Don't forget to.
And like and subscribe and keep an eye out for the future episodes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Bye.